probably you've changed an environment before, and you could see the difference that makes when it comes to the life choices that you make at the end of it all. So from there, yeah, the decision came with respect to which school will you go to. Yeah, I chose University of Ilorin. I don't like that school till today. If you went to University of Ilorin, sorry, it doesn't matter whether the school is great or not in my books now, just because they didn't choose me. Not because they are not great, but they did me dirty. I chose University of Ilorin, and they didn't choose me just because I didn't meet the cutoff mark. But it was painful at that point because I'd had all my hopes on, going to a higher institution, but that didn't happen. Then the following year, I did jump again. Then I, chose the greatest university in Nigeria, in Obafemi University. And interesting thing about my choice of OAU is, sorry, if you didn't go to OAU, I'm sorry, but I have to blow that trumpet. The interesting thing about that school was that the first time I went to OAU was when I resumed as a Jambite. I didn't know anyone. I've never been there before. When I resumed, because then after the exam, you have to check it online to see whether you were admitted or not. So my cutoff mark was 1 mark above my score in JAM was 1 mark above the cutoff mark. And I didn't know anyone, and I was chosen. I was admitted. The key message here is that excellence still exists in this country. If you are excellent, merit still exists. There might be predominance of lack of it in some areas, but meritocracy still exists in some areas. If I'd scored higher than the cutoff mark in University of Ilorin, most likely I would have been admitted as well. But I didn't. And when I did in OAU, I was admitted, even though I didn't know no one. Right. I didn't know the VC, I didn't know any lecturer. Ghana Must Go was what I used to pack my load the first time I visited that school, and I fell in love with it immediately. So meritocracy still exists, right? So do your best in terms of what you're capable of doing, with the expectation that if you can beat that hurdle, that the merit system will take care of it. Will take care of the rest. So yeah, OAU was an important episode for me in my life, and it has a very strong connection to what we have today in Cowrywise and the life I live beyond even Cowrywise, right? And the reason for that was in school, I was part of an association, which is also very important if you're still students. It is very important to look beyond just the academic environment and try and do things that are outside the regular academics, because those things reinforce the strength of the academics, and more importantly, they reinforce the kind of relationships you build while on campus. And for a good number of people, if you go to a very good school, the relationships you build while you're on campus can be the major determinant of the life you live outside campus. Can be the major determinant of the kind of place you work at, can be the major determinant of the people you live with at retirement. It is extreme. I can't overemphasize that. I'm not even sure how much emphasis I can place on that. That would be enough, but it is extremely important. So I was part of this students association called Student in Free Enterprise. But now they are called Inactus, and they exist in a couple of Nigerian institutions today. So what the association does is basically to challenge students to think through an entrepreneurial guidelines and come up with high impact projects within their communities, and come up with reports, measure the impacts, and then present the impact reports to esteemed panel of judges made up of CEOs and partners from professionals from the industries. So I was opportune to be the president of the society, and there is a linkage between academic performance and being the president at that point, because the way the society was structured, they basically will pick the best students from each department and they make them form a group, a team. And that team was the team representing the institution. So first, if you're not among the best students, you don't have the opportunity to be there. And that falls back to the point I mentioned earlier, that wherever you find yourself, try and be the best, because you really can't tell how that best position can be instrumental in your next step. And today, for every role, every job I got, the standout part of my CV after school was my experience in student and free enterprise. I had an excellent academic record, excellent, right? But combining that excellent academic record with extracurricular activity there was no way you read my CV and you won't employ me. I see no way. There is no way that you see my CV based on what I've achieved academically and based on what I achieved in extracurricular activity. You want to talk to me. It was just that simple. So the point is, what kind of profile do you have as a person, such that when people read your profile, they are intrigued enough to want to have some minutes spent with you? So you can be the self-assessor of that. And those things can only be done when you actually apply yourself to productive engagements, productive activities around you. And the way I've seen things happen over time is also that it is incremental, it is compounding. Once you achieve one, it is easier for you to achieve the next, but it may be extremely difficult for you to achieve that next without the first one. So if I wasn't one of the best students in my department, I won't be the president of Student and Free Enterprise. There was no way. Then I was elected as the president, and we did an excellent job. Then I was leading a team of about 65 students, made up of students from different departments, from economics to engineering to architecture, name it. And what also helped us at that point was that OAU was on strike. Even though it was a bad situation, but it helped us as a team because it allowed us to have 100% of that strike period dedicated to the Student and Free Enterprise project. So while we're angry and sad that we're on strike, that time was productively engaged, was productively utilized for us to execute fantastic projects. So we executed a lot of projects. One of them was called Building Enterprise Experience. And Building Enterprise Experience was, okay, if you look at the acronym, it is called B, Building Enterprise Experience. And it was apiculture, that is teaching people how to produce honey, right? It was a fantastic experience. I had the experience of wearing that suit where you go to the beehive, harvest the honey, and you get stung by bees and stuff like that. I had that experience. And the whole project was about teaching people how to do that, setting up the beehive, setting up the apiculture farming properly. And we had the support of UNDP at that point, United Nations Development Program. And it was fantastic. There was a village in very close to Ife called Ayoba community. And it was an excellent project. It took us like 6 months to do. Aside that, we did so many other projects. And the one that is also more relevant to this discussion was a project called Web Wisdom and Wealth. So it is www, Web Wisdom and Wealth. And it entails teaching people how to build simple websites. Then you might think, well, as an economist, what do you know about building websites? And that is where my co-founder of today came into the picture. Edward also attended OAU. He was in engineering, computer engineering. And interestingly, at that point, he was the Nigerian IT Youth Ambassador representing Nigeria. He was just traveling all around. On campus, then we're looking at him as God. Fantastic. So what we did was to partner with him, brought him in because he's an engineer. He was an engineering student at that point. As the Nigerian IT Youth Ambassador, it was so obvious that we had to partner with him, given the projects that we wanted to do. So yeah, he facilitated the project with us, and we also partner with GTB at that point. GTB funded the program, and we're all students, right? And we're doing a lot of things for our immediate communities, and we're doing excellently well academically as well. Because as young people, we had that capacity to be able to do a whole lot. So how you allocate your energy matters a lot. What you allocate your energy to matters a lot. And at the end of the day, those things are the things that will determine how you eventually live your life 10, 15, 20 years afterwards. And this is a prime example of that. So how did we make a decision to invite Edward to facilitate Web, Wisdom, and Wealth projects? One, because he was Nigerian IT Youth Ambassador. One. Second, because his younger brother was my roommate. And I'm painting all of this picture to emphasize the need for us to cultivate meaningful relationships. If you are a terrible person in your room, it is most likely that if I was a terrible person in my room, it is most likely that when we reached out to Edward will reach out to his brother and most likely would decline that invite. So Edward had a brother. Edward's brother was in my room, and Edward was the Nigerian IT Youth Ambassador. So that conversation happened organically to bring Edward into the project. And yeah, Edward did a fantastic job. And the project, plus one other project, were the projects we presented in Nigeria. And we won the national championship in the country. And that was the first time I had the opportunity of representing Nigeria, representing OAU, and not just OAU, but the country in New York, alongside 34 other universities across the world. It was an amazing experience. It was eye-opening. It changed the way I saw the world at that point. So there were triggers, there were experiences you go through that will change the way you see the world, that will change your ambition. And one thing we need to understand here is that ambition is an evergreen document. It changes over time. The ambition you have today will be completely different from the ambition you have in 4 or 5 years from now. In fact, the ambition you have today might be different from the ambition you have tomorrow, just because something might just happen tomorrow that will change the trajectory of the way you see the world. So for me, representing the university I was in, representing Nigeria in New York was fabulous. Fabulous. So 7 of us left the country, represented Nigeria, and we presented the project we executed within our local communities. And we had 34 other countries, from developed countries to emerging to less developed. Out of these 34 countries, Nigeria came fourth. We came third behind USA and Canada. To us, it doesn't matter whether we came fourth or third, or we won in life. We're not even interested in coming fourth because we've gone too far beyond our expectations that we could represent the country and make Nigeria proud at that level. It was a complete victory for us. But we faced a lot of challenges. And if you look at the story I've narrated, the story of one, either choosing University of Ilorin and I wasn't given, then eventually choosing OAU, which eventually allowed me to meet Edward, which eventually allowed me to be president of Student in Free Enterprise, then allowed me to have the opportunity of representing OAU, allowed me to have the opportunity of representing the country. Those things can't be scripted. You can't script it. There was no way I could have scripted that while growing up from Kano. They were events that happened sequentially, but at every point, you have to make a decision that can position you to take advantage of the next step. And everybody here will experience that in different forms, in different colors.
Sorry, Razaq, can you please repeat that statement? You have to take a position.
What did I say again?
Yeah. You said at every point you have to take a position that will enable
Okay,
you.
you have to take decisions that position you to take advantage of the next step. So
you have to take decisions that will position you
to take advantage of the next step. So you may not have 100% clarity in terms of how.
Wow.
But at every point in time, you need to make micro decisions that can make you a better person, or that can give you the advantage over others around you. And you can see some of these micro decisions. One, I had a good relationship with the person I live with in my room. I had the insight to say, oh, let's partner with your brother. I didn't know your brother, but I know he's your brother and he's doing extremely well. And it looks like he can be a perfect fit for this project. Let's bring him in to be part of that. And that partnership or that invitation enabled us to build relationship, right? Then Cowrywise wasn't in the picture, but we built a relationship while in school because we had a project together and the project was extremely, extremely successful. And yeah, we came back from New York. We were welcomed by the Minister of Sport, Minister of Youth. We were invited to Abuja by the. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And these are the kind of experiences young people should have while they're growing up, because it will reimagine and reshape your mind about your own role as an important stakeholder in the society. So because whether you like it or not, you are an important stakeholder in wherever you live. You have your own part to contribute. And the part is, one, if we've represented the country badly, there was no way. If we represent the country well, and I'm sure the judges then were from Fortune 500 companies, a lot of them, in the midst of the financial, in the center of the financial capital of the world in New York, and we're, flying the flag of the country. That was a positive development. Now imagine that happening in 1,000 places. This is how the narrative about the country changes. If you have a lot of instances like that, right, good things happening, you representing the country well, making your school proud, making the countries proud, these are the factors that shape how the outside world sees you, sees the country, and sees the Black race as a whole. So we all have important roles to play. So we came back and it was, fantastic. And then it was the end of university education. So basically I left university with two fantastic tools: solid academic performance and solid extracurricular activity. So when I said that if you read my CV at that point, immediately after school, you have no option than to invite me for a chat. You will have no option, because it wasn't the regular CV of, I finished in school, first class. No. There was significantly more to it than that. And in today's world, a lot of people have that opportunity. And this is not even limited to academics alone or while you're in school. Even while you're living life, while you're working, you have the opportunity to do a lot more than the regulars. And those are the things that can stand you out. Those are the things that can make you be invited to the table. So I cited the example of the school just because it was the school at that point. What you need to do is to replicate that experience to today, because some of us are no longer students, right? We're still students of life, but we're no longer students of university. In today's world, in your life today, what are the things you're doing that are outside the regulars? And if you're not doing those things, you are not likely to stand out. You're not likely to have the opportunity to do things extraordinarily. Because when the time comes for names to be mentioned, names will be mentioned of those who have things beyond what majority have. And that's extremely important. So we left school, and what will we do? Yeah, well, relationship as well. Got me my first job. Even though, my CV was solid and all of that, but again, relationship got me my first job. And how did I get my first job? During our final year program, we usually do this FYB, and someone was invited to speak to us, one of the alumni. So he came from Lagos to speak to us about, life after school. And during the FYB, there was an award being given to students, different students, most sociable students, most this and all of that. So I got an award as well. And after the event, he gave me his card that I should call him.
What award did you get?
Best student, of course. Best academic students.
You studied economics, right?
Yes, I did economics. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a first class student.
Yeah, I finished with first class. Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
So so he gave me his card, and I kept it. Then after 3 months after we finished, I was still on campus. There's just something about the Ife environment. You just want to be there. I don't know. So cool, so detached from the realities of the country. Constant light. Sometimes there are troubles, but the environment is just conducive to life generally. So, but again, the decision had to be made for us to leave. So I left, and then I gave him a call that, yeah, I'm done with school. And the next thing he asked me to come for an interview in Meristem. So I went for an interview, and I was given a job. So that was my first job after school, before NYSC. And
what was the role?
I was a research analyst, investment research analyst. Yeah, which was fantastic compared to, like, it makes sense given the course I studied. So investment research analyst.
Of course.
Now,
what year was this? What year was this?
This was 2008. 2008.
Okay. All right, please go ahead.
Yeah. So one other thing here is that he came to, so the man that gave me his card is still a big friend today. He finished from the same department as well. And while he got employed at Meristem, he was commissioned to bring the best student from his department to Meristem. So there were a couple of guys they've already employed, some of our seniors who were working at Meristem at that point. So the strategy was go to these schools, get the best students, and bring them to research primarily. So there were discussions, there were strategies from these companies. And if you happen to fit into that strategy, they pick you. It's as simple as that. Which is why I'm saying anywhere you are, just try and be the best. Just try and do extraordinary things, because you really don't know what others are planning. And most likely, if you're the best, it is very likely that their plannings will favor you. Most likely. So yeah, he brought me in to join other seniors that graduated from the same department, all in the team. And it was like we're in economics department of Afema University in Meristem. Those are like 6 or 7 of us, and we're all from the same department, all first-class students. It was an extremely competitive team. When I say competitive, extremely competitive. And that changed. You actually want to put yourself in that kind of situation as well, because you want to be at the top of your game all the time. You want people to challenge you. You want to be surrounded by people who see the world differently, people who will challenge the way you think. While I didn't develop that, I found myself in that situation. So you have first class. There were 5 other people that have first class. You were the best student in your class. There were 2, 3 other people that were the best students in their class. You know economics. There are others who know economics, right? So what do you have over them? You just have to continuously step up, right? So if you're in an environment where you work right now or where you live and you don't see those kind of challenges, you need to change it, because you might not be testing the limits that you have, and you need to constantly test that limit. It is extremely important. You just never can tell what you are capable of doing until those limits are tested. And the environment you are in matters a lot.
Wow, please, you need to repeat that one too. You need to repeat that one too. Razaq, oh my God. That one has given me goosebumps, right? you need to actually, you don't know what you're capable of until you are able to test your limits.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
you need to,
what people even call limiting beliefs, they're actually there to be tested, not to like pull you down, right? You don't know what you're capable of until your limit is tested, until you position yourself in an environment that will actually challenge what you have inside. Oh my goodness, that's so deep. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
okay.
go ahead, please.
Okay, so yeah, I joined Meristem, research analyst, very competitive environment, doing research, investment analyst. And the environment also shaped me because my seniors that were there already started the CFA program. And just for context, at that point, there were less than 10 charter holders in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Less than 10. And these guys were already doing the CFA program. So you can imagine how it was so easy for me to see the CFA program as the next line of action after school. So if I had not joined them, and if they were not doing the CFA program, most likely I won't see the need to do it at that point. And probably right now it might be too late for me to start thinking of doing the program. So they were doing it, and it was like, well, if you're in Meristem research, you're not doing the CFA, what are you doing with your life? Your colleagues were all doing it, so you have to do it. So I enrolled, did level 1, did level 2, did level 3, and then I passed. And when I passed the CFA program, it's a 2.5 to 3 years program. When I passed the CFA program, we're like less than 40 in Nigeria at that point. Today, we're about 400 in the country. So it's a very difficult program to go through, not because the material is technically difficult, but because most people that do it are working class. And you have to combine that with working. And it's also rigorous. The materials are voluminous. And because it is the same across the world, what you're doing is what the Chinese guy is doing. The question you are responding to is what the American guy is responding to, is what the Indian guy is responding to. The same exam globally. And the funny thing is that it is based on ranking, right? The cutoff score is based on ranking. So they will just look at, how do I put this? Say the top 40% pass. So you may fail, not because you are bad, but just because there are a lot more people in the world that score better than you. Which means for you to pass, you have to score really, really high. So everybody is put on the same pedestal. You are responding to the same questions, you're answering the same questions, and you are being scored equally. Right. So that is what makes it a little bit difficult to pass. And beyond the exam, it's a fantastic program for anyone who is interested in finance, global finance. It's an extremely, it's a fantastic program. So if you're interested in finance, I think that's my logical recommendation. Just do the CFA program. You'll see the world of finance, and then you can pick where you want to specialize. So yeah, I did the CFA, and I eventually finished it. So the message there is that the environment I found myself also influenced the kind of program I decided to do at that point, because people around me were doing it. And it was, if people around me were doing bad things, most likely I would do bad things as well. But they were doing something that was good, so I had to do it as well. So environment, where you live, where you stay, where you people you roll with, they all matter when it comes to life choices that you make. Then let me fast forward. So I left Meristem, joined Vertiva Capital. From Vertiva, joined Shell. From Shell, joined another company called SAT Partners. And then later on, we founded Cowrywise, right? Now, the Cowrywise story was founded because there was a friend that I met in school, and it was like 7, 8 years after school, that left school, joined InterSwitch. He was working, Edward was working in InterSwitch while I joined Meristem. And he was infrastructure engineer for InterSwitch. Then later on, he joined African Telecoms Advantage. which was and they were responsible for MTN's USSD infrastructure for a couple of African countries. So he was in charge of that. So the whole concept of Cowrywise came into play because there was a discussion around my background, which was investment management, and his own background, which is telecoms and tech, technically. And how do we make investments accessible to everybody, right? Because while I was in Meristem, it was very clear to me that I had an account with Meristem, but I was able to have that account because I was a staff. Because I didn't have the money required to set up the account with Meristem if I wasn't a staff. So there was a minimum account, there's a minimum amount you must have at that point before you can open a stock brokerage account. So I knew quite all right that there were millions of me out there who wanted to invest, but didn't have the minimum requirement.
Razaq, sorry to cut you. Can you give an estimate of how much that was? And this is like 2008.
Yeah, like 150,000 thereabout. Yeah, come on.
Oh, okay. Okay, not so bad. But then 150,000 in 2008 right now, maybe we are looking at about, is it 1.5 million?
Maybe. For context, my salary then as pre-NYC was 50,000, but I was 20. One of the highest paid 50K. But okay, I was one 50. Of the highest paid NYCs because then we used to, joke around that Meristem was the highest paying company for NYC at that point. So 50K was material at that point. So so the minimum account opening balance was around 150K. But leaving school, of course, we don't have 150,000. And I remember vividly because the first account I opened was GTB. And that was when I was in 300 level. And I opened GTB because the minimum account opening balance was 0. And majority of us did the same thing at that point. And interestingly, we're still with GTB today. So even though they showed us shiggy, but we're still with them.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is that the seed of Cowrywise was sown right from school, but we didn't know we didn't know the fruit it will bear, whether it's mango or orange or pineapple, or whether it will even be, we didn't know, but the seed was sown there. And so connecting where it worked and where Edward worked made it a lot easier to see that, there's an opportunity here. So what we wanted to do, the idea then was, how can we leverage the telecoms infrastructure to make investments accessible to millions of people? Because telcos already had, they already had customers running into millions, but the investment management industry was unable to reach out to millions. So that was the idea that, this will be fantastic. I have investment management background, Edward telco, so let's combine the two and, let's go to market. So we reached out to MTN at that point, and the concept was to reverse engineer recharge card. Then there was recharge card, that's recharge card that you peel off the paper. I'm not sure if they still exist.
Thing at the back.
At the back, yeah. So the idea was to reverse engineer that such that when you buy a recharge card, instead of loading it on your phone, we can convert it back to money and use that money to invest on your behalf, right? It makes perfect sense. And technically it was feasible, but the problem was that the commercial didn't make any sense because MTN was seeing it as a value-added service, which was similar to the way they were using musicians' songs to do ringtones, and they were charging like 30-40%. And this is not vast. This is customers' money. How will you charge us 30-40% on customers' money? So technically it was feasible, but commercially it didn't make any sense. And this is why, as an investment analyst, I was able to see that clearly, that from a commercial standpoint, it doesn't make sense. And from a technical standpoint, it makes sense. So what I'm saying basically is that even though you can be an engineer, you can be good technically, the commercial side matters a lot if you really want to build something that is sustainable. And this is not just about building businesses alone. It's also about how you craft your life too. Technical considerations are good, but the commercial side of things also matters a lot, right? So that didn't work out, but the product was sensible. The only solution, the only problem was that we needed something that would make it commercially viable. And interestingly, time and chance happened, because that was when we now had the development of modern payment infrastructure like Paystack and Flutterwave, who were able to come up with solutions that rides on card infrastructure rather than telco infrastructure. So with card, we were able to do automated charges and recurring charges. And the fee of that was 1.5% versus what MTN wanted to charge us of 30%. So it made perfect sense to say, yeah, this is a lot cheaper. So yeah, we started with that. And one thing that changed, which I'll try and link to what I mentioned earlier about how ambitions change, is that when we met with the team at that point, the discussion was around, yeah, we will give you some volume discounts if you're able to do significant volume. And 1.5%, even though lower than what we will have paid if you're using the telco infrastructure, it was still relatively high, because if you're in the asset management industry, 1.5% is relatively high. And then I remember clearly the target then was, if you can do 2 million naira in a month, you will qualify for discounts. And frankly, at that point, 2 million naira a month was relatively like, how do we get people to use Cowrywise so they can save and invest 2 million naira? Because then the minimum you can save and invest on Cowrywise was 100 naira, and we only had a couple of friends and families using it, just testing it. What madness were you guys building? Let's just test it just to make you feel happy. So I did a couple of 100 naira, 200 naira there, 300 naira. But how do we
Sorry, what year was this?
This was 2017, 2016, 2017. Yeah.
Were you still working at that?
No, I'd left there. So I'd left.
So your last place was the
Partners.
Was the place after Shell?
Yeah, after Shell, yeah. Start Partners, yeah.
Good. Because we're talking about big ambition and bold action, I'm going to take it back a bit, because now if we're talking about 6 or 7, 8 years post launching or transforming an idea into a multi-million dollar company. But at the time when it was an idea, what gave you that courage, that confidence that this is going to be work? What kind of ambition? I know it probably, yes, you wanted to solve the problem of, where there's accessibility to investments without any form of limitation in quotes, where you're having up to 150,000. But what gave you that courage? Because of course it's bold action. You have to resign your job, right? At the time where the company was still ideation stage. I want to believe. When you were speaking with MTN, it was also ideation phase, right?
Yeah, it was. Okay, let me speak to that. So of course I skipped so many things just because of time. So the key thing there is that you need to have options, and the timing of exercising the options matters a lot. I think what gave us the audacity was, one, partly foolishness. Second, a raw ambition that wanted to solve world hunger. And the key thing was, frankly, the way we analyzed it was, if everything fails, it is extremely difficult for us not to get a job. At that time of our life, if the idea fails, let's say we spend the next 1-2 years and the idea fails, if we dust our CV, we'll get an excellent job. It was as simple as that. The implication is that before you make some bold actions, or before you take some bold actions, you must have things that can serve as a floor for you. Now, we've worked in different places. We've acquired experiences, and we're not doing bad financially. Frankly speaking, we're not doing bad financially at all. So we could support our lives with whatever saving we had at that point, which we actually did over the next 2 years or so of setting up the company. And the option then was, if this fails, what will happen? What's the worst that will happen? Okay, you dust your CV and go back and get job. We were confident that we'll get job. 100% confident based on the experiences we've gathered, based on the past work that we've done. So that's extremely important for you when you're making those bold decisions, bold steps. Timing matters. And more importantly, we realize that if we didn't do it then, it may be more difficult for us to do. Right. At that point, it may be, so the longer it takes, the more difficult it becomes for you to take those kind of radical decisions. But while you're making those radical decisions, you need to know clearly that there is a floor below which you can't fall. And that floor for us was, go back, dust your CV, and apply for job. You'll get the job, given your background, where you worked. You know, it was that easy. So overall, when you take risk, when you take bold actions, calculated bold actions, be sure that you have a floor below which you cannot fall. And when things don't go your way, you can always go back and get started again. And I think a lot of people have that. Some people don't, and it might not be your fault. Some people have it. It might not be their creation, or it might just be their parents, for example. You know, making them have opportunities that allows them to take risk, that allows them to experiment, such that if everything fails, they have a bed they can fall on without, breaking bones. So it is extremely important to do that, which is why, to me, timing matters. When you make the bold decision, it matters a lot. And second, understand that. And remember, when we took that decision, there were just like 50, 60 charter holders in the country. So if I dust my CV and I want to work in a bank or an investment management company, I will get a job immediately. So it wasn't so difficult. But if it was difficult for us to get that kind of things done without a flaw, we may still have gone ahead, but the decision will have been a lot more difficult for us to take, because you might be considering, what if this fails? What will I do at the end of the day? Right. So overall, timing matters, and then make sure you have a flaw. And that flaw can be anything. It can be the work experience you've had. It can be your academic record. It can be your family. Your dad might have a business running that if everything fails, you come back and lead that company. It can be anything. But try and evaluate the optionalities you have at every point in time where you make life-changing decisions, because anything can happen. Anything can happen. So when things happen, where do you fall? Do you fall and break your bones, or you fall and bounce back? So if you have that flaw, it makes the decision a lot easier. And then as well, I think we're pretty much convinced that it was something necessary for the Nigerian capital markets, knowing fully well that there were lots of people that participated in the markets in 2008, 2009, before the global financial crisis. And afterwards, it was just that a lot of people decided not to anymore. And given the barriers to entry, 150,000, some 100,000, and even these barriers to entry applied to banks too. Banks were minimum account opening balance for bank before you could open a bank account. Then was 20,000, 50,000. Zenith was 50 or 100,000. Access Bank, ridiculous amounts. Now you can open a bank account with no naira. It wasn't like that before. So there were problems. And that was one of those things that gave GTB one of their early tractions. Open accounts for free. No minimum account opening balance. Zero account balance. And majority of young people then opened those accounts just because there was no barriers. So we understood that, and we felt, why can't we replicate that in the investment management industry? Instead of having a minimum balance that you must have before you can open an account, why not just make it close to zero? Because we knew quite all right from our understanding that the development of the capital market is essential for the development of the country. It is necessary that people must invest and save money. It is critical. And beyond cultural requirements or cultural understanding, it is economically important for any country to aggregate savings and investment for national development. In the US, in Europe, those things are happening. In China or the Asian countries, they're happening. In South Africa, it is happening. Why can't it happen in Nigeria? So it was just a matter of time. And who will be the characters responsible for making that happen? And we can see that has been justified over the years. We've seen millions of people who are now participating in the capital markets. And more importantly, technology became a lot cheaper, like a lot cheaper. So we could build things ourselves without relying on third-party softwares or off-the-shelf software that costs a lot of money. You couldn't set up a bank then because the software alone was extremely expensive. You have to go to India, get Finacle or some other banking software that will cost you billions of naira to do. But we built out the software we're using ourselves without costing so much. So access to technology was a lot easier. So it was easier for us to ride on open source applications, build softwares, build technology that allows us to serve the customers a lot better. It would have been more difficult for us to do that, say, in the 2000s, to be honest, because we'll need capital to be able to do that, to be able to pull that off. So the capital we needed when we started was intellectual capital, not the financial capital. So we leveraged what we had to build the technology and to get the company started. And that technology is even a lot cheaper today. Right. We have AI, we have so many things happening in the world. Things are changing very fast. We might be taking some of these things for granted, but the world wasn't like this before. To build a business, it was a lot more difficult then. And I'm talking about pre-Cowrywise and all of it. It was a lot more difficult. Building businesses today is a lot easier than 5, 10, 20 years ago. And it will continue to be easy, to be honest. So we need to understand the environment we're in and analyze it, have the ability to analyze the environment, have the ability to see insights that can shape the future. If we had waited 1 or 2 years before founding Cowrywise, it would have been very difficult for us to do what we're doing. The market will have moved. The market will have moved. And let me also add that when we started, we didn't have the license. And this is also why relationship matters. We didn't have the license, but we needed to go to markets. If we had applied for license, it would have taken us like 2-3 years to get that. But what did we do? We went back to my first place of work, Meristem, to use Meristem's license to go to markets. So if I left Meristem in bad notes, will I be able to go back and say, yeah, I want to strike a partnership with you guys? Because they had all the cards in their favor at that point. We were seeking help. So I left Meristem on a good note. So I had the opportunity of going back to say, yeah, we have this idea. It is similar to what you're doing, but we are focusing on the retail markets using technology. But we wanted to partner with you guys to use your license to go to markets. They accepted because I worked there. I left there on a good note. So where you're working now, are you actually living on a good note when you eventually leave? Or where you worked before, did you leave on a good note? Because you might end up being in a position where your next step will be determined by the relationship you built from there. And we still have a good relationship with Meristem today. Right. So that's how the whole thing started, basically. So if you look at this story, just to summarize to allow for questions so we can dip deeper into some other areas. If you look at the whole story, there were a lot of interconnectedness from how environment changed, where I eventually went to in school, to how the person I was living with in school in my room was instrumental to reaching out to Ed, to how my academic performance was responsible for me being the president of Student in Free Enterprise, to meeting with Said Bashir during our FYB at the end of the year, to coming to Lagos, getting my first job, meeting with my senior colleagues, writing CFA, which influenced me to write my CFA program, and eventually reconnecting with Ed to form Cowrywise and living that life today. All of these are connected. There was no way I could have scripted those things. So the most important thing is every step of the way, you need to be authentic. You need to be the real you. You need to cultivate relationships. You need to make the best decision per time, because just never can tell how decisions you make today will be essential in determining what kind of life you live 4, 5, 10, 15 years. And this is my life today, right? This is the life. Growing up, going to school, meeting friends, this is the life I've decided to live. And that life has been shaped by the history that I've shared with you guys. There is a lot more, but again, I think I'll just stop here and then allow you guys to ask questions and then delve more into that. Thank you for listening to my ranting.
No way, that's not ranting. That is good stuff. I have a couple of questions here. However, for the listeners, I'm going to have to give them access to speak. So please put your questions. If you can type your questions in the chat box, that would be good. Because for me to allow them have access to the video, I need to go off YouTube, but I can see that there are a couple of people watching live on YouTube right now. So I won't want to do that. I'll just go straight to my questions that I have here. So before I go into the question, I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that you said today, which are very, very key. You said the thing about there's no way you could have scripted your life, right? It was just a work of interconnectedness and staying true to yourself, to your authenticity. And I really appreciate that a lot. And I'll tell you why, because earlier this week, we actually lost a staff member in a very tragic way. I told you that we had planned a company retreat and it was supposed to happen on Wednesday. The same person was in the office Monday and Tuesday and didn't make it to the retreat the next day. But when I listened to the story, I looked at how, okay, there's no how this could have been scripted. This is a play of interconnectedness, because I just put the pieces together. 1 minute could have changed everything for her. How when she left the office, where she went to, and all of that. And at the point where, she was hit, right? There was a boss that whoever the rider is was trying to avoid. So instead of ramming into 20 people, he decided to ram into one person. But if he wasn't there, what could have happened, right? So 1 minute could have changed everything. So I looked at life in itself. It's impossible for it to be scripted. It's a play of interconnectedness. Now, that's speaking in terms of a negative event that happened. But when you really look at it, when it even comes to positive events, right? Same thing. Each of your decisions every day, where you go to, where you're working, the kind of relationships that you have, all of these interconnectedness feeds eventually into who you become. And that very important statement you made in the earlier, where you talked about how you have to take decisions that will position you for the next phase. It's like when you're in a relay race and you have to hand the baton to the next person. So if you imagine that your life is in phases, right? And this interconnectedness, just like you have a chain, the decisions that you're making now, right, will influence and determine, and how you position yourself now will determine how you're going to do in the next phase, So I really, really do appreciate that. And you mentioning authenticity also hits it home for me. So there's so much people can plan. The way people will say, oh, so what's your plan for the next 5 years? Awesome. You can plan and try to script it, vision boarding, and all of those things. They're amazing. But at the end of the day, your life is brought down to micro decisions, which is something that you said as well. Oh my God. It's brought down to micro decisions. I bet you how you are taking care of yourself, what you're eating, as basic as that. At least even be successful in those micro decisions, right? What kind of, how are you managing your relationship with your boss? How are you managing your relationship with your friends, your relationships at every point in time? So your life is broken down into eventually micro decisions. And what you have right now, there's something I say a lot, which is that your present is your greatest present. We have no idea what's going to happen the next 1 hour. We have no idea. The future, as powerful as it is not as powerful as the present. What exactly are you doing right now, right? So your decisions be positioned. Honestly, I love that so much. I'm going to tweet it or something, right? Positions you for what your next phase is going to look like. So coming back to my question, now when you are in a generation, because again, I have quite a few young people here actually, but what I see now and all of this story that you've spoken of hard work, you've spoken of relationships, you've spoken of networking, you've spoken of hard work, literally, and images, the power of images, the power of environment, and how your background and your environment influences your future or who you eventually become. But I look at all of this, it makes a lot of sense to me. But when you sit a typical young person down or an average person today down, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work. Why? The media that we all have access to has positioned certain people in certain way and created this idea of success for us. So, for example, I'll give instance like content creation. It's not a bad thing, right? Especially for if anybody's a content creator here. But when you see that, why do I have to go through these routes that Razaq went? Because somebody that is doing content creation is making and traveling everywhere, going on vacation, and thinking of building a legacy, building a business that will stand the test of time. You said one of the SDG goals, which was that you wanted to eliminate the world hunger. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, but that was metaphorical.
I understand what you mean, but it started from that
having
is the
big
typical
ambition.
big ambition. Yeah, that's the typical big ambition, right? Yeah. See, I want to eliminate world hunger, right? How many young people are thinking like this today? They exist. It's just that quite a lot of people, and it's because of access to media. In your own time, as at 2007 or 2017, that's why I was asking you for years like that. There were sort of like less distractions. So what would be your word, so to say, or admonition in dealing with distractions, one, for a typical young person today? Number two, overcoming limiting beliefs. Okay? Because your environment and your background influences your trajectory, just like you said earlier. How many businesses in Nigeria, for example, have lasted 100 years? I am in the pharmaceutical space, and myself and my boss were speaking. We've never had a local industry become a global name, a global brand, not even global brand, that survived outside of Africa or within even Africa. So think about like the Emzol, think about that, these are big names. Like 10 years ago, they had this, but it seems like our environment or our culture seems to cap people. They don't think, we can become a unicorn. Yes, we hit $100 million, but we can become a unicorn. Oh, sorry, we had this huge positive revenue. We can become a unicorn and all of that. So there's this sort of limiting belief or this tendency to just be comfortable. Once you make some money, at least I can travel, I can take care of my family, all of that. You also mentioned that while you were working, you were making some money, right? Yes, you felt like, this has gone beyond me. I want to end world hunger. So I'm going to resign my job and I'm going to take this bold action to start up Cowrywise. So two things. What's going to be your admonition, right, for young people, especially now that there's a lot of distraction around us. In your own time, yes, there could be media, the access to it was limited, so you can't know what this person is doing, what that person is doing. Now it's right before you. You see all of your graduates, all of the people you graduated with, some of them, they are traveling everywhere. They have so much money. So it's a lot of distraction, stress on the mental health and all of that. How do you deal with that? Number two is overcoming this limiting belief, because yes, we're talking big ambitions. Yes, how do you incubate a big ambitions regardless or despite of the environment and the background that you have? Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. So there are certain things that are constant, irrespective of time, irrespective of they're as constant as they are today as when Jesus was alive. And those things are fundamentals. They don't change. So it doesn't matter if there is a technological advancement, if there is, war, if there is peace in the world, those things are just constants. And one of them is being competent, being super competent. So one thing that is clear is competence building takes time. And it doesn't have an alternative. If you want to be successful in the career that you've chosen, you have to be super competent. Like you have to build that competence. And when I say competence, I'm not talking about you having this self-affirmation that I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. No, I'm talking about you actually putting your head down and get the job done. Be known for something. Be known for something such that, especially in your early years, be known for something such that when experts are being talked about or being spoken of in that field, be in a position where your name will be mentioned. Don't be jack of all trades earlier on. Be experts earlier on. And the way to look at this is, if you look at the development of an average person career-wise, at the early stage, you are expected to be technically sound. Leadership, it's expected, but you are not expected to be world leader, right? Just be technically sound. And once you demonstrate technical soundness, you begin to move across the career ladder such that you are given more leadership responsibilities, because that is how career grows. And over time, you de-emphasize the technical bit because you are no longer in charge of doing the technicals. You are now in charge of doing the leadership, the team, the business decision, and so on and so forth. But if you do not have the technical soundness, that competence, it may be extremely difficult for you to actually be in that leadership position. So it is extremely important to spend time, energy, and invest strongly in technical competence development. If you really want to stay long in the career that you have chosen, you can't substitute that technical competence for vibe, or substitute vibe for technical competence. You can't.
For vibe. Hey.
There is nothing like vibe. Can only be a short-term thing. Time will catch up with you. You really don't have that competence. So for the guys who are young, I don't think you should be carried away by what you see others display around you, because those things will be tiny in 5-10 years from now. And I'll give you an example. While I was after school, one of my greatest ambitions then was I wanted to have a family where I will have the opportunity of taking my family out in my own car to a supermarket. I love that experience, like you with your wife and kids in your personal car, going to supermarkets to buy stuff and then come back. I love it. But looking back, that was foolish. Why would I have that kind of thing as what I wanted to achieve? Right. But then it mattered to me. But today, what's that? For goodness sake, why would I have that kind of thing as something I plan to experience? And then I remember as well, while I was in Meriston, there was a colleague of ours that had there was this car, Golf, one small car like that.
Yeah.
It was like the most, how will I put it? I don't say the richest, but the most outgoing guy.
That arrived.
He arrived at that point. And we all had ambition to buy Golf.
Wow.
And this was 2008, 2009, not long ago. Golf, that tiny car. But looking back now, why will you even have that? Those things don't really matter anymore. Golf, for goodness sake. I'm thinking of Golf. Who even uses Golf anymore today? Right. So those things in the short term might be seen as important, but in 5-10 years, they will be completely irrelevant. Because in 5-10 years, you want to be in a position where you are dictating things. And I'll give an example. There was a colleague that I work with in Meriston who left Meriston to set up his own business. Right. And I visited him in his office in Yaba. Then I was still in Meriston. I visited him in Yaba. And he mentioned something to me. That thing stuck with me for a very long time. So we're talking about health insurance. And he said, why are you thinking of having health insurance when you can actually be the one dictating the health insurance that people have? Right. So if you are the one dictating the health insurance that people have, it is natural that you have health insurance. Right. So the point is, instead of thinking about how to be the beneficiary of an outcome, why not be the guy dictating that outcome itself, the creator? Because once you are the creator, you are naturally a beneficiary of what you've created. So that also speaks to the kind of ambition that we need to set for ourselves. Because some ambitions, once they are set, some other tiny ambitions are naturally met. But if you set your ambition at a very low level, then you continuously aspire to achieve the bigger ambition, right? So if you have friends who are doing extremely well and you feel you are not, I don't think you should take that as anything. Just figure out ways that can enable you continuously build that competence. Remember, I mentioned earlier, some things don't change. A competent mind during the era of Jesus was superb. A competent man today will be superb and will be highly sought after. So if you understand that philosophy of life, what you have to do is pour your heart into developing competence. It doesn't expire. You'll have your way. But of course, we'll have different paths. We all have different times and so on and so forth, but you'll have your way. And I think that's the best way to bet against life. Build competence. That's the most productive bet you can have. Build competence. It doesn't matter which sector or which industry you are. Just build competence. And ask employers of labor. They are looking for competent hands. They are not looking for, they can get people who have vibes, like who ride on vibes, but it won't last. Trust me, it won't last. But if you're extremely competent, leave it. You will last. You will outlast all the vibe givers. So the key thing is, despite all the distractions that exist today, just focus on the competence. I'm not saying you shouldn't do the vibe. Do it if you can, but don't do it at the expense of building real competence, because that is the only thing that can stand the test of time. What's the second question again?
About overcoming limiting beliefs.
Overcoming limiting beliefs. Okay. So so this can be tricky because somehow some people develop in an environment where the self-confidence wasn't built while they grow up. But some people develop in an environment where self-confidence was instilled in them right from day one. It can be as simple as you being taught how to shake hands, for example. You shake hands holding it, firmly, or you just shake hands while you bow your head looking at the floor. It can be as simple as that. Those things build confidence, self-belief. But the key thing here is to know fully well that what your age mates are doing elsewhere in the world, right? You have the opportunity to do the same. So I'll give a story here. While we are at YC in 2018, in Cowrywise, myself and Edward. And there was this program that one of the YC partners was handling. The guy that developed Gmail, when he was in Google, when he developed Gmail, so he left Google, joined YC. So he had this program. It is called How Do You Build a $1 Billion Company, Unicorn. And of course, we're still at very rudimentary stage at that point. And he said, if you're interested in the program, you indicate interest, you'll come, join others, but you have to pitch to others how you see your company becoming a $1 billion company, right, at that point. So yeah, we applied. That will be part of the program. So the day before that, we decided to sit down and look at, okay, how do we make Cowrywise, a $1 billion company? And then we looked at the investment management industry in Nigeria, and we felt that GTB, banking and investment management, GTB was the most valuable company in the finance industry then. It was valued at about $3 billion then. But that was because the exchange rate was 350 thereabout, 350 to a naira. 350 naira to $1. So GTB was around 1 trillion. Yeah, I remember like 1 trillion. And it was, so that was like 3 billion at that point. So, and this was a guy asking us, how do we build a $1 billion company? That's 33% of GTB. And GTB was the only company at that point, at that valuation. So it sounded like it might not be possible. But you know what? We had our age mates from elsewhere in the world who were seeing the possibilities of doing that. Our age mates from South Asia, Southeast Asia, our age mates from Latin America, and of course, different environments. But because we're able to find ourselves in the same environment as these guys, we had no option than to forgo all those limitations. That because GTB was valued at 3 billion, how do you want to build a one? Sorry, did I say 1 billion? The answer was 10 billion. How do you build a $10 billion company? Which meant that we had to build a company that is 3 times the valuation of GTB. Yeah, not 1/3, 3 times the valuation of GTB. So that was the ambition. So
that's 10 unicorn in one.
Yeah, correct, 10 billion. So because I remember that we said, okay, you want us to build the size of, we want us to build 3 GTB, right? Because we asked the guy.
I mean, you have to first relate to a company like that where you come from. And it was only GTB you could, right? So you now use that to calculate or, what exactly is this guy trying to talk about? If there was no GTB, there's no way you would have even imagined what is a $10 billion company like.
Exactly. Yeah. So the key thing there was, it was a difficult thing to look at, but there are things around you that can enable you overcome those challenges or those limiting thoughts, because there are people like you who are doing similar things elsewhere in the world. So we need to broaden our worldview. That's the message I'm trying to make here. We need to broaden our worldview when it comes to overcoming limiting factors. So beyond your immediate environment, what are the other things? Because if you look at it, things are happening in the world. You probably are exposed to 0.00000% of what is happening in the world. Even though you can be intelligent, you might know a lot, but you don't know many things happening in the world. The world is a massively big place. Even in Nigeria, how many things do we know going on in Borno, in Kano, in Port Harcourt, in Abuja, not to talk of other African countries, not to talk of other continents. So the world is massive. So we just need to broaden our worldview. And that, to me, is the most important thing when it comes to overcoming some of these limiting beliefs or self-thoughts. Because your environment is circumstantial to you, right? Your environment is circumstantial. You don't have control over where you were born. You were born into Nigeria. You didn't plan that. So whether you like it or not, whatever is obtainable in Nigeria is part of your life. But you have the option and decision to decide that, so even though I was born in Nigeria, I want to see beyond Nigeria. Because, of course, things are happening beyond Nigeria. Things are happening beyond Lagos. Things are happening beyond Ibadan. You have that opportunity to decide that you want to see things beyond that. So broadening worldview, I think, is the key thing, because you can see what's happening elsewhere in the world. You can see if it is possible. And trust me, 10 out of 10 times, you see that those things are possible. When you go see the world to see what is happening, you see that what you think is impossible is usually possible.
I agree, absolutely. We have 7 questions, or I think 5 on the chat box, and I'll read it very quickly. I just wanted to speak on the last thing you mentioned. So during my company retreat, I have people from Ghana, Sweden coming around, and at some point we're staying outside, and a bird had pooed on somebody, and then the person said, "Oh my God, this is bad omen." The guy is Nigerian. And then the Swedish said, "No, where I come from, it's actually a good omen."
Imagine.
Look at that. So
the same events, 2 opposing interpretations.
Yeah, based off geographical or different cultures, right? So you'll be shocked at some of the things that would be in terms of overcoming limiting beliefs, because it doesn't even exist as a limitation in other cultures or in other worldviews. Do you understand? It doesn't exist. You might hate the fact that you're thin, you are dark. Then you go to some countries, you go to some cultures, and then realize that, see, that's the one thing they want. They just want to be dark and slim. All right. So by the time you expose yourself to several worldviews like that, it helps you to begin to change your perception and your perspective about life, which is how actually we really do approach life. One of my mentors used to say something that whatever belief you're holding on to that cannot be subjected to like a world view, it's baseless, it's not strong. Like if you call yourself, oh, I'm a global, just like you said, vibe in the sense that people will put on their Twitter pages and say, global champion, global leader, global leader, global leader, global leader that has not left, the confines of Nigeria, right? Maybe has attended a few events and all of that. So if you can't pass the tests, right, across several geography, whatever thought pattern you have, whatever perspective, then you actually have to subject it to change, right? So I'll go straight into the question. The first is, at the stage of ideation, and this is by, I want to believe, I can't see you guys' name, but at the stage of ideation and where the business is right now, did you ever think Cowrywise would be as big as it is now? And how were you able to expand your mindset to allow the business to also further expand? I take it again?
No, we didn't see that. And let me just, I think there was a line of thought I was trying to make earlier when we had the discussion with our payment gateway. And they were talking about us making a volume of
1.5%. Okay.
2 million naira to take advantage of volume.
To get a discount.
Yeah. And 2 million was like, how do we get people to do 2 million? Frankly, where we are today, thinking that way was like, how on earth will Razaq be thinking that will find it difficult to make people to do 2 million? Like 2 million, not 2 billion, not 20 billion, just 2 million naira, right? So we didn't see that, to be honest. We had a big ambition then relative to how we're thinking then. And that's why I said that ambitions change. Is an evergreen document. It needs to change. If your ambition doesn't change, that's a problem. Because there is no way you can see 10 years into the future. You hardly. What you can possibly do is 1-2 years. But for every year that happens, you need to update your ambition based on the new information. Your ambition, and the beautiful thing about ambition is that for every ambition that you achieve, even though a year or 2 years before that, that ambition might look like it is big enough, you will start to think that I was thinking small 2-3 years ago. If you've not gone through that kind of thought process where you felt the ambition you had 2-3 years ago was stupid, I think you are probably not growing as fast as you should. So it is normal for your ambition to be completely destroyed based on how far you've gone. So 5-6 years ago, we didn't see us doing this amount, to be honest. And right now, we even see where we are right now to be small. That's the funny thing. Even though we didn't see ourselves here 5-6 years ago. Now imagine right now, we're thinking we have significant miles to cover in the next 5 years. And I'm sure 5 years from now, what we're aspiring to cover will become, nah, this is not where we should be. We should be somewhere else, right?
I love
so
that.
I think that's the way ambitions work generally. So you need to constantly reassess that ambition, and you don't have to be right 100% of the time, because you can't.
Wow.
Very, very difficult. You just need to use the information you get per time, per year, to update your ambition templates, craft another ambition. It can be a continuation of the old one, might just be a lot bigger, more refined.
Based on the information that you've gotten.
And that's the way life is generally.
Oh, awesome. You guys, you need to go back to this session on YouTube. I'll show you there's a lot more to unpack. There's somebody else saying here, thank you for sharing your story with us, sir. It was very inspiring. You mentioned that being the best wherever we find ourselves will give us an edge. In a situation where one hasn't exactly had the best track record, I love this question, right? Or even a good one at the very least, how can one make a turning? I love this question because it came to my mind while you're speaking. Over to you.
Okay, yeah, fine. So when you look at it mathematically, there can only be one best per vertical. But you may not be, it is unlikely that one person will be the best across board. So if you are not the best academically, you can be best in something else. While we were in school, there was a guy that was doing photography. He was fantastic at doing it. I can't do photography for anything. I don't know how to do it. And I can't be the best in photography. But this guy was fantastic in photography. In fact, all our graduation pictures, he took them. He was basically making money right from school. And he had a studio then. And he still has a studio right now. So you can be the best in something. And that is what you just need to figure out. Some people find academics a lot easy. Like, it's just who they are. Academically, they're sound.
So I don't think this person is speaking in terms of academic track record.
No, I'm heading somewhere.
Okay.
What I'm saying basically is that you don't have to be the best in one thing that everybody is best at. You can be the best in something. And that thing doesn't have to be what others are best at. And why I'm saying that is that mathematically, you can only have one best at something, right? So there are so many things that can happen. You can be an engineer and, be as good as you want to be. Even though you've not been lucky to be good at something in the past, coming to that realization, I think, is progress. That you now want to make an active decision, a bold decision to be best at something. They now need to take the step to build that. But it is not something that happens immediately. It's something that happens over time based on the actions you take, right? So don't limit it so you have to be the best at what others are doing. You just need to figure out what you can be the best at. And it can be anything, to be honest. It can be singing. It can be running. It can be anything. It can be leading a company. It can be anything. You just need to figure that out. I know it is not as easy as I'm saying it, because it's very difficult to determine that. But once you figure that out, and that is it, you just continuously make that active decision and action to fine-tune it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was helpful. Remember, at the end of the day, how really do you, because person says, how can one make a turning? How do you just have to decide to make a turning? Bold decision, right? It's not going to look easy, just like Razaq said, but remember how micro decisions, right, at the end of the day augment each other, and eventually has this ripple effect that leads you on the path of success, or of course creating your own best track record in quotes. Next I have here is, you also mentioned that ambition changes. How can one smoothly transition from one ambition to another? Can one combine multiple ambitions? If yes, how can one successfully manage multiple ambitions, especially when they are not exactly related? I love this question as well.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic question. So I think that's the way human beings are structured. You don't really have one ambition per time. You have multiple ambitions operating in different spaces. One, it could be career ambition. The other could be family. Others could be some other things like religion. Some have social ambitions, just want to impart lives around them. So you have, technically, even though you might not have written them down, you have so many things you aspire to do at every point in time. So we are not wired to just be thinking of one thing, because we are wired to do multiple things at the same time. And that's how we live our daily lives. You go to work. After work, you go home to your family. Weekends, you go to church. During weekends, you go for weddings, social events. So we do multiple things at the same time. We are wired that way naturally. So we are inherently having multiple things to do at the same time, even though you may not actively realize that, right? But being conscious of that is also important, knowing fully well that you have multiple things you need to achieve at the same time. So the key thing here is to be able to distill those things categorically. That, okay, my religious life, this is what I want to achieve. My academic life, this is what I want to achieve. My career life, this is what I want to achieve. My social life, this is what I want to achieve. I want to join a club. I want to know people. I want to, so those things can work in parallel. And we are wired like that. It's not a suggestion. It is something that you probably already doing, because everybody does that. If you ask people about your ambition, it is natural, or the tendency is very high that people will start thinking about career. But inherently, you also have ambition that you want to get married someday, or you want to have kids sometime. Maybe you want to have 2, 3 at some point, or you want to be a pastor in your church. We all have different ambitions that are inbuilt in us. So those things happen naturally. You're already managing them. You're already juggling multiple ambitions without knowing, but you can be active in terms of bringing those things out black and white to see how you can achieve them. But you cannot just pursue one ambition and think that life will continue. Life won't stop when you pursue one ambition for you to achieve that ambition, and then life continues after that. No, life continues. And you have to live life like that. You can't say because you want to achieve career ambition, then you won't get married. Or there is a limit to it. You have to get married, you have to have children, or because you want to pursue career ambition, you won't take care of your kids. You have to take care of them. They have to go to schools. They have to go to uni. Those things happen simultaneously in parallel. So I think we just need to come to that realization. It is something you're possibly doing already. So it's not a challenge, frankly. I hope that helps in some ways. Can you still hear me?
Hey, Razak, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. I think you went off. Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear you clearly.
All right. Razak, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're muted. I guess I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Hold on, let me reload it. I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I think I had network issue from my end. I had a network issue from my end, but we can keep going. So you were saying just before it went off?
Hello, can you still hear me?
Oh, you can't hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. But I think there is a lag, sort of. That's probably the issue.
Hey, Razak. Okay, let me just give you a call right now.
I think I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, Razak.
I can hear you. Clearly.
But I can't hear you. So I think whatever happened the other time has happened again.
Okay, let me reload that.
Okay. Apologies, everyone. We'll be back online shortly. Just waiting to fix some sort of technical glitch. Maybe this is something that someone can help us solve in this country. So we are creators, not just beneficiaries. I mean, internet connectivity issue. Maybe it's something that's not happening also. Yeah, so it's been a fantastic time with Razak. Is going to be back in a few seconds, in a couple of seconds, hopefully. Fantastic time. My notes are actually full. This is way better than I thought. I imagined. Thank you
Okay,
so
can you
much,
hear me now?
Razak. Razak is back right now.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Sure.
Oh my God. This is too
I can hear
good
you.
to be experiencing this. We can't still hear you. What is the problem?
Can you see me?
Oh, 1 second. I think I might know. Oh, they said they can hear you. Can you try that again? Can you
I can
speak?
hear you. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I'll refresh from my end right now. 1 second. you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
It works now. Apologies. Zoe is not doing well this evening, and they've been doing so well before. Okay. Quickly, just back because I know we've taken so much of your time already, which I really appreciate. I apologize for. You want to round up on what you were speaking on in terms of having multiple ambitions. I was really, really enjoying that. We never even process the fact that on a daily basis, we actually do have multiple ambitions already. But most time people always think it's career or something about the future, always they go. So you want to quickly round up on that?
Yeah, so I was just trying to say that we are wired to pursue multiple things at the same time. You are probably doing that already without realizing that. So from a career standpoint, you can have something you want to achieve. What might be a bit tricky or maybe not advisable to do is to have like multiple things you want to do per vertical. So career-wise, for example, just to paint an extreme picture, you can't say from a career standpoint, you want to be a pilot and a medical doctor, for example, at the same time. Even though some people can still do that, the world is a very funny place. Some people can still do that, but for majority of people, I don't think it's something that is reasonable, right? You can't process that you want to be a pilot and then a medical doctor, the same profession, or you want to be, you can't just do those things. You can't have that kind of ambition, which are obviously conflicting in nature. But across different things in life, we'll have different things that we pursue. And it is just the way we are wired generally. So there is nothing wrong in that. It's just to be able to isolate each one and pursue those ambitions and doing things that can actually enable you to achieve the ambition. That it's not enough to have ambition. It is also important to have to take the actions that can enable you achieve those ambitions. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, quickly, what challenges did you face while trying to build your team, recruiting the right people, and achieve team milestones during the pre-licensing phase? And this is a big question. It's going to require some during the pre-licensing phase in the financial industry. How did you address the obstacles you faced? Were you earning immediately? I love it. This must be from a founder or somebody in the financial industry.
So yeah, building team is difficult, frankly, and it is probably the most important factor that can determine whether the business will eventually be successful or not. Sometimes, or most times, companies fail not because the product is bad or the problem they're trying to solve is non-existent. Largely, it's because there isn't the right team to execute to solve for the problem. And the way to also look at this is to see that companies that eventually succeed don't necessarily have the plans figured out from day one. They only have a tiny bit of what the problem was, and then the people continuously solve the problem over time. They build on solving the problem, the capabilities to solve the problem over time. So team is extremely important. So building team, the key thing that I've seen work for me is being able to sell the vision to the teams, because it is important that people that are working for you or working with you in a way, they are staking their lives to be part of you, part of your vision. And their life matters as much as yours. So you need to be able to let them see that in the vision and the future you're trying to build, they have an important role there. Not just an important role to build the vision, but an important role that will make the realization of that vision contribute to their own good life. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants a good life. So if you have a vision and you're selling the vision to me and I'm not seeing how that vision contributes to my good life, there is no way I won't buy into that vision. So your key job while you're building the vision and building the team is to be able to position each person clearly that this is the future we're trying to build. This is how you can contribute towards the building of that future. And this is what that future means for you as a person, because you're staking your life in it. So most people don't connect the last parts, which is why they might find it very difficult to get people to be part of it. As humans, we are inherently selfish. So you need to play to the selfish part of people as well. But for example, people that you're building, people that the team you're building, you didn't know each other. You are not family members. You all have different ambitions. You all have different things, different view of the future. And if what you're building doesn't fit into that future that I want for myself, there is no way I'll be part of your team. And I think that's the simplest way to analyze that. Get people that understands or people that buy into the future you're trying to build, but also believe strongly that that future has a future for them in it. So that way you will be on the same journey towards building something that will be beneficial, not just for you, but for everybody. That's the best thing I can say around building for the future and building a team. If you're unable to do that, you find it very difficult to get people to work with or to work for you. Then around whether we're making money from day one, yeah, I think it is very, I won't say we're lucky, but we had that clarity from day one on how to monetize. But it wasn't like so much money. We still had to augment so many things with our personal savings earlier on. But we had clarity in terms of how to make money, but we needed time to scale to that level where the money being made is meaningful enough to run the business. But we had to leave. We have to run the business until we get to that scale. So that was where the initial capital of our savings came into bit.
I love that. The initial capital of your savings. I love that. Most founders today don't want to bootstrap at all. All right. Good day, Mr. Razaq. I'm Aziz Bayo, founder of Verificare. If you are to turn back the ends of time, what will you do to make your life best than it is now? Or let's say better than it is now?
Nothing. I don't think there's anything I can do better.
Why?
I think I don't think so. I'm not sure I regret anything, to be honest. I think everything is just fine. And looking back to think of counterfactual, I'm not sure there is anything I will have done differently. Because everything just appears to be linked. So it's just like a chain reaction.
The interconnectedness you talked about.
The chain reaction. So there was no way I could have had the superpower to know that, oh yeah, we change this now. I think the most important thing is that where are we today? Where we are today as a company or as a person, am I satisfied? Yes. I'm super happy. Super happy in terms of the problem we're solving. I'm super happy about how far we've gone. I'm super happy about the life I'm living. So yeah, I think I'm super satisfied in terms of where I am right now. Not that I'm stopping or I'm slowing down, but I know sometimes you need time to get to a certain level. But in terms of how far I've gone, I'm satisfied with where we are relative to the time. But in 50 years' time, of course, we can't be here right now, and I know that. Or in 5 years' time, we can't be stagnant at this level. But given how far we've spent or how long we've come, where the result we've achieved, the outcome we've achieved, I think is satisfactory for me. I wouldn't do anything differently, frankly. I have an excellent co-founder. I have excellent team. I have beautiful family. I have everything. So I don't think I'll change anything. I just need to continue on this path and ride on that time to get to the next level. For me, I wouldn't change anything, frankly.
I love it. I love it. The next question is the final question on this is one, what motivated you? So this person has 3 sets of questions. What motivated you to keep going even when changes during the ideation stage required multiple restarts? I love this as well. So let's take it one after the other. What motivated you to keep going even when changes during the ideation stage required multiple restarts?
Okay, so I think there's something about having confidence and drawing from your past experiences that you've actually done some challenging things in the past, that they shouldn't be any difference, right? So if you've gone through that, every time you face a challenge, there is this inner part of growth from that inside. I've faced challenges before, so I think I should be capable of doing this. So that motivation matters. And for every challenge you solve, then you are better equipped to face even bigger challenges. So, but you must see results before that confidence gets destroyed. So, and that's very critical, because when results don't come, you might start to have some self-doubt that maybe I'm not as competent as I thought. But over time, if you continuously get small victories and you ride on that small victories, draw strength from the small victories, you will eventually rebuild the confidence even when it has been destroyed. But you don't want to get to that level, because some people don't have the opportunity to get back on their feet after that confidence is destroyed. But if you have the momentum of solving problems, getting things, no matter how small, it could be you having the responsibility to do something in a church, you having the responsibility to be the leader of your team in school, from primary school. Those things are confidence builder. For example, I was a senior boy in my primary school. From there, I was president of Literary and Debating Society in my secondary school. In my university, I was president of Student in Free Enterprise. There was no way I won't draw strength from that. That historically, I've always been a leader. Historically, I've always been doing well. So bring the problem, I'll solve it. But that's about you drawing strength from your historical performance, your historical antecedents. Those things matter a lot. So you want to be able to have a lot of things you can look back to see, I did this thing. If I could do it then, why can't I do this now? So those things are motivations that can keep you going, even when the roads are rough. And you need to be able to have a lot of them in your arsenal to draw from. So you don't want to have just one or two, when after drawing from them, the well is dry up, and then that confidence gets shattered. Because at the end of the day, one thing I've come to realize is that most of the problems we come out to solve for, we don't know the solution. We don't have the solutions from day one. We just have this big idea. I want to make investment accessible to everybody, right? That's the big vision. That's the big picture. But the path you have to go through, you have to rely on the fact that you are competent to do those things, because those things are not taught. You can't read them in books. You have to make decisions. You have to decide on the spot. So you have to rely on the fact that you have the capacity and ability to make those important decisions. And you can draw strength and confidence from some of the successes you've achieved in the past. Those things matter a lot. Most people are built that way. They'll just exhibit confidence. You wouldn't know why this guy is so confident. It's because he has done a lot of things in the past. And his momentum. And for every victory that you achieve, you are standing on that victory tower to achieve even bigger victory in the future. So it is very important that you accumulate small wins and draw strength from them over time. They will allow you to solve the bigger problems.
And also learn from failures as well. You know.
Yeah.
The second one says, how do you know when to pivot versus when to push other toward a bold goal? I love this one too, because I see I'm in a space where I get to interact a lot with founders, and this is the bold decision, that sometimes they struggle with. How do you know when to pivot versus when to push other toward a bold goal? Many founders find it difficult to make tough decisions, right? Like this, what, this thing is not working. I need to get into something else. Or, okay, I need to keep pushing harder.
I'm not sure I have an answer for that, frankly. Sometimes there's usually that thin line between whether you need to push a bit harder or you just need to pivot. Sometimes some people quit early. Sometimes some people stay for too long. So it's really difficult to draw the line. But one thing that I can say is for everything you're doing, you just need to be able to be super objective and true to yourself. That are you actually doing this because of some sentiment you have attached to what you're doing? Or you can see clearly that objectively there is a pathway for you to make this happen. Or you are just attached to this because there is something sentimental and you're not thinking objectively. And I think if you can use that yardstick to evaluate, you will know whether you need to quit or not. Because some of these things are not sentimental. It's clear cut. You say it. So you just have to be super objective in that self-assessment to know whether, yeah, there is no way. There's no way. It's like, let me give an example. It's like you are in Nigeria and then you're saying that you've evaluated that for you to make your business work, you need 1 billion people, for example. It's just an extreme example, but just to pass the message on that you need 1 billion people to make your business work. But in Nigeria, you have just 200 million people. But you're saying, yeah, I believe I have the hope, I have the belief that the business, it won't work. Because objectively, there is no world where that business will work. So you can't be sentimental in that case. So you have to change course. You have to pivot to something else. So the most important yardstick for me when evaluating whether to keep pushing or when evaluating whether to pivot is to be super objective with the assessment and not be sentimental or not be emotional. Just be objective. And you can see clearly that. And if you think you've been, your thought process has been beclouded by sentiment, you can get other people's view and, be receptive enough to understand how other people think about it if you think your judgment has been beclouded. But I think that's a singular lens that you can use to evaluate whether to pivot or to continue. Because sometimes what you see others might not see, but you know what you're saying and you can tell, except you don't want to be truthful to yourself, that this thing is because I'm from this part of the world, that's why I'm doing it. It doesn't make sense in reality, but you won't say that publicly. So if you are truthful to yourself, I think you should be able to determine whether you need to continue to push or you just need to pivot. And if you can't carry that self-assessment, I think you should talk to people. Let them tell you what they feel about it. You'll be shocked. Some people can be very straightforward. They'll tell you what you're doing is nonsense, right? And they might allow you see the world in a different way. So that way you can improve your decision making and decide whether to continue or to pivot. But it's usually difficult to say, yeah, this is when to stop and this is when to continue. Just be objective. I think at least you'll be 90% sure, not 100%, because things can still happen that you just aren't sure of, but you'll be sure to a very large
extent. Your control, more like that. I appreciate that. That's amazing. There's a question from YouTube. I'll take it quickly before I take the final question here. She says, "Hi, Mr. Razaq. Your session was really eye-opening. My question is, what if one has wasted a lot of time? How can one catch up?"
I think there's this saying that when you wake up is your morning. You can't get that time back. The time is gone, so don't waste time again. Just start whatever you want to start. You don't need to cry over spilled milk. It's gone. That time is gone. That's one resource you can't regenerate. You can't regenerate time. Once spent, it is gone. But once you come to that realization, you don't have to wait for the next second. Just act and start doing whatever you want to do. It might sound motivational, but I think that's the best way you can look at it. Objectively, you can't get time back. And for every additional minute you spend, you're wasting more time. So just get to it. When you are awake is your morning.
Awesome. I love that. Absolutely. Is both that regrets is a useless energy. And that's why I love how you responded to the other question about if you had any regrets. I have no regrets. You know, our life is interconnectedness that is literally beyond our control. It's not scripted, right? So regret is a useless energy. Action speaks louder than worry. Action speaks way better than even the most instead of just the most useless action outweighs worry and just thinking about I've wasted my life. It needs to just get up and work. So finally here, what are some common mistakes you would say people make when taking bold actions, or what are the things people overlook that you would say give you an edge? This audience came for you, Razaq. They came for you, man. But I like the fact that any question you hear, it shows how intelligent you are actually. There's a way, because I study people's body language a lot. Any question, you don't even ask for me to repeat it the second time. You're like, you know what, I can handle that. You just go ahead and hit it. So, but let me say it again, right? What are some common mistakes you would say people make when taking bold actions? Or what are the things people overlook that you would say gave you an edge?
Okay. I think the small things. Being early to an interview, being early to work, being early to meetings, being cautious, being, the small things, because there is nothing new in this world, and there is no big thing per se. You might even end up doing the big thing. If you lack those small things, that big thing will be useless. So the small things matter a whole lot. And the small things over time, consistently over time, can compound to be something amazing. Small things consistently over time. It is unbeatable. It is unbeatable. So there is no magic anywhere. If you see intelligent people or someone who is extremely successful, there is no magic. I mean, people who are truly successful, right? There is no magic. It is just that they've been doing the small things over time consistently, right? So don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry to get to the sky. Don't be in a hurry to touch the star. It takes time. You have to build your rocket. You have to determine what kind of fuel to use. What rocket fuel do you want to use? You have to determine what time you need to lift up. You have to determine how long it will take you to get there. So all these things take time. So the little things, to be honest, don't see success as something magical. It is not. It's something everyone can do if you can just pay attention to the little things. The people around you, the little guy, where you work, the people you live with, your neighbors. You can be shocked what you can get out of those things. Your friends, the friends of your friends. Those things are very important. And as I mentioned, those are the basic things you can do to engineer interconnectedness, right? You just can't script things because there are 1,000,001 things that are happening in the world that you have no control over. And those things will happen to you. So the world that you have, that you're building, is just a tiny portion of what is happening in the world. Tiny, like minuscule. So what you can do is to just prepare for whatever happens. So when those things happen, you are in favor, largely. So just focus on the little things, frankly. And those little things are endless. There are many of them. You have a meeting with someone, you didn't tell them you are counseling, and the person was there, you didn't show up. You've created a perception in that person that you are completely unreliable. If there's an opportunity, but you won't even come to mind. Like just those little things I think really matter. And those things don't just create results immediately. They create results over time. So it's gradual. Nothing happens suddenly. Nothing. So for example, it took us 3 years before we could reach an AUM balance of 5 billion. We do 5 billion in less than a month now. Are we working harder than we were working 3 years ago? No.
No.
Just the time. You have to wait it. You have to wait it out. Some things can't happen without time. And if we had stopped, there is no way we'll have achieved this result. So we have to do the little things consistently over time.
Some things can't happen without time. Hey. Oh my God, Razaq. This is hot seats, man. I like how you just say it like it's your default, you know. But this is really mind-blowing stuff. Mind-blowing stuff. I know time is fast, man. I have 2 questions for you. One, okay. What do you think is the impact of AI in the future of work? Number 2, when it comes to envisioning, how do you envision, and more like if you were asked to give like the blueprints for envisioning, you might also still be in that phase where you're working on it yourself, but so far based on the information and the experience that you've had, what would you say, speak on where the blueprint of envisioning is concerned? And then what do you think is the impact of AI in the future of work? I have an extra question here, but if you do not have time, it's okay. It says that, what do you look out for when recruiting like a high flyer? What are the things that you look out for in a person that you can say that this person is going to be the deal? Because I see how you emphasize the place of people, where building your team, building the entire Cowrywise is concerned, and I absolutely agree with it. So when you get into an interview, what are the things, or maybe when you meet somebody, what are the things that jump at you and you say, you know what, this person is a potential high flyer, I can bank on this person, even though they don't look like it in that time or in that moment, but you know what, I can bank on this person. So those 3 questions will run it up for us tonight.
Okay. AI, I think I'm not sure I can even tell everything that can happen. It's a plain canvas. Anything can happen. Anything, frankly. It is ridiculously interesting. Anything can happen. I think that's the best way I can. Anything can happen with AI right now. Anything. And just think about it. Anything can happen. So I hope that answers your question. I'm as amazed as you are. So, but just know anything can happen at this rate, right?
I agree.
So the second one about recruiting, I think there are so many things. So when initial stage, I used to be part of the recruitment team, recruiting people directly, asking the technical side of things. But as the team grew, I withdrew to a level where I just have to focus on other things that I believe are the cultural traits that the person must have to be part of the team. So the team will have done the technical side of recruiting. I'm just doing the non-technical side. And there are basic things I look out for, and those things are also very simple things. First, I look at your impression about your current role. If you currently have a company you're working with, I want to see your relationship with your current employer. Are you saying bad things about them, or you're saying good things about them? And I will judge objectively whether you deserve to say good things or bad things about them. But when you say bad things about your company, I usually see that as a red flag, irrespective of what the company has done. And it's also in the how you say it that also matters, right? If you presented it in a way that makes it sound like you are being put on the spot, but you reluctantly just give a tip of what happened, but do not paint yourself as the victim or like the company did bad thing to you. It doesn't matter how technically sound you are. Some of the behavioral traits that you should have is do not speak down on where you worked just because you want to get another job. I think you need just to focus on what you can offer as a person. I think I look at that, even though I don't ask directly that, yeah, how far was the experience with your existing company? Is from all the other questions, then that can be drawn and synthesized to see what's your perception. Because most likely what I've seen is that 9 out of 10, those kind of people will come and intoxicate that same company they're trying to. Most time, 9 out of 10, they're at fault. And they'll speak ill of the company they're coming from just because they're looking for a job elsewhere. It is not about you speaking ill of the company, it's about the attitude. There are ways you put that across. And I'll give an example, like this woman in the UK, Kemi. People like that, I can't employ them. I'm sorry. she's your namesake.
You're right. I know.
Look, there are ways you pass those messages across without,
condescending, sounding very
exactly. You can't. No, come on. So, to me, I think I value this kind of maturity.
Quality. Okay.
Even though the company might have done something wrong, but you don't have to sweep that company under the bus just because you're looking for a job. And people do that. Don't want to paint themselves as saints. Talk bad of the company just because, then the second part is things they do outside work, because I believe strongly that work is just a part of work is just a part of your everyday life. And what happens outside work matters a lot in determining your productivity. So I want to know exactly how you spend your non-work hours. Of course, I'm not invading your privacy, but I want to understand how those things can shape your productivity or otherwise. So those are the things I look out for. Then I look at how you respond to some of the questions. And usually it's conversational, not like an interview session, frankly. You might end up asking more questions than I ask if I'm interviewing you, right? And the quality of questions you ask as well also determines how to evaluate whether you're curious. Because if you're joining a place, you're spending probably 8 to 7 hours of your daily life in that place, you should be curious enough to ask about what is actually going on in that place. Am I interested in joining, or am I just running from fire and then I'm running into frying pan? From frying pan to fire, yeah. I want to see whether you are curious to know about the company you're trying to join. And those things, curiosity, the behavioral trait largely, and mind you, all the technical side will have been taken care of, depending on the team you're joining. If you're joining legal, engineering, portfolio management, the teams will have taken care of ascertaining whether you are technically fit for the role. Then the non-technical side are the things I look out for generally.
I love it. The envisioning question.
Oh, yeah.
Blueprint.
How do I envision? So I think it's a gradual thing, one step at a time. There was a time I just wanted to have my family being driven to a supermarket. There was a time I wanted to buy golf. There was a time we had an idea to have 2 people, 3 people join the company. That, I think it's stepwise, one step at a time. You also don't want to set things that can make you doubt your capacity. As humans, you want to always achieve something above what you've set, because it builds momentum for you to reinforce that self-confidence in yourself. So you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So I'm not saying you shouldn't dream big, but dream reasonably well, such that what you are dreaming is reasonably achievable rather than just a pie in the sky. Otherwise, you just set yourself up for failure and disappointments. And sometimes when you get into that space, it's downhill right from there. So it's like dancing on a quicksand, just keep sinking. So you need to set reasonable ambition, reasonable vision for the future. And again, the way I also see it is you need to set standard against yourself most times. Like you want to achieve XYZ because you've achieved ABC last year, and not necessarily because someone achieved ABC, so you want to achieve ABC. No. I think if you can make yourself the standard, especially if your personal standard is very high, you will go really, really far. If your personal standard is really high and you use that as a standard, you will go really, really far. And that's what I do like me. What did I achieve last year? I have to beat that this year. Next year, I have to beat it. That's it, yeah.
Wow. Wow. I love that. That's like a personal challenge for me as well. The way you said it, right? Thank you so much, Razaq. I can't thank you enough. I owe you this. I need to say this right on here. Everyone, can you just appreciate Mr. Razaq right now in the chat session? Just give like a feedback, while I share this, everything that Mr. Razaq has talked about on this call in terms of the values that you emphasized. He spoke a lot about how the little things go a long way. I have seen him exhibit effortlessly. There are very few leaders that I've met with the kind of exposure, power, and intelligence that he has, and success that he has, that have displayed those level of what's it called? Those type of qualities. And I'll mention it. I think I put it on LinkedIn. I want to remember if I put it on. But the last time I was in Razaq's office, I went with my daughter actually. It was in December. And I remember that when we had a chat in his office, and then I came down and realized that I locked my key in the car,
Yeah.
And I was like, what just happened, or what's happening? And I just called him, okay, I have a situation, and then he came downstairs with a colleague. He just went straight to, we need to solve this. Now, this is Razaq Ahmed, CEO of Cowrywise. And the next thing I noticed, he gets into his car and he goes to find a vulcanizer, because it was a weekend, that was going to help us get the key out. And then they go like a couple of minutes and returns with the vulcanizer, and I could still see him moving around, And then at the end of the day, I'm asking the vulcanizer, oh, how much does that cost? And then he says, so you don't have to worry about that. Well, it's not even so much about the money as to the promptness of getting into this car and going to get the vulcanizer. Oh my God, that hits me really hard. We said a lot of things in your office, but that singular experience I will never forget. I learned that from you. So much that by the time God blesses me and I have like a unicorn, I have $1 billion, I will remember that act of kindness, that show of openness, that even in your place of when you have this high power and influence and all of that, you can't still be kind. You can't still be human, because at the end of the day, your title is there, yes, but you are first human before you're anything else, right? And I just really want to thank you. I want to thank you. Immediately, I'm like, no, Razaq, anywhere I am, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for Cowrywise. It's one of the things I told Ayo. I said, I have no doubt that Cowrywise is going to grow exponentially and it's going to be a unicorn. I have no doubt. I don't know what your financial is like. I don't know what your AUM is. I don't need to know. I can bank on that person that did that. Right. So I want to thank you and honoring this invite as well. Very humbling. I love it absolutely. And I want to thank you. I want to thank your family as well. My love to them. We've taken so much of your time, and I apologize, but it was really, really fun. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words for us?
Yeah, thank you so much as well for inviting me here. I hope that this will be the start of something, the start of, maybe a dot that needs to be connected in the future for here as well. And these are things happen too. And my expectation is that in the future, you can make reference to this event that, oh, something happened here that got connected to this, and I'm here now, stuff like that. And this is why showing up really matters. You really just can't tell what will come out of it. And my expectation is that something definitely will come out of this. I'm sure of that. And it's the way the world, yeah. So thank you as well for
and you are definitely coming back. In fact, you're definitely coming back. This was a lot. You're definitely coming back. I'll let you know. But thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend as well. All the best. I'll be in touch with you via WhatsApp for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm back now, so I can let you know about when I'm